Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Ibu Ratu Sarah Pujasari S.Pd M.Pd as the lecturer of the Sociolinguistic course. So here we are from Group 6 and today we will be giving a presentation about linguistics variable on language variation, language use across contexts. Before we begin, please introduce our group members. The first is Adi Nugraha with NPM 130, and then the next Diana Cecilia Sinaga with NPM 060, and me myself Nada Rahmatillah 124, and Shasita Najwa 134. And it is the table of content that will be discussed for today. The first is introduction to the topic, and next analysis of example, and the next is pedagogical implication, and the last is conclusion. So we hope that this presentation will give you more insight into this topic. Now let's move into the material. The first material is about tell about the multilingualism. So according to Klein 2017, multilingualism refers to the ability of an individual or community to communicate in several languages. In this increasingly globalized world, the phenomenon of is increasingly common, where many people speak more than one language in their daily lives, whether in family, school, or work environments. And next, we will discuss about linguistic variable. So according to Lavendra, 1978, linguistic variables are language features that can vary among speakers or in various contexts. Examples could be differences in pronunciation, word usage, or syntactic structure, and depending on the particular social group or situation. For example, how we pronounce or choose words can be different when we are talking to friends that when we are speaking in formal situation. Maybe that's all. The next explanation will be explained by Adi Nugraha. So, Adi, please.
All right, thank you, moderator, for giving me your time. And for the next, we move to language variation. So language variation, according to Gregory and Carroll, 2018, language variation refers to differences in the way language is used by different groups or in various contexts. So language is not static, and there are many variations in the way people speak depending on many factors. There are several main types of language variation. The first is dialectal variation. Language variation based on region, such as the difference between British English and American English. The second is social variation. Language differences based on social factors such as age or gender. And the next is register variation. Changes in language use depending on the context or level of formality. For example, the way we speak in an academic context will differ from the way we speak casually. And the last is situational variation. Language can change depending on the situation of purpose of use. For example, the language used in a classroom will be different from the language used in a hangout with friends, like that. Next slide, please. All right, so we move to the methodology. So here, for the methodology section in the literature review, we can use a framework from figures that are often used in linguistic and multilingual analysis. In this case, the research framework can be considered. And here we choose the method by framework by Li Wei 2000 on multilingualism and code switching. For conceptual basis, the way discusses that language used in multilingual context is determined by social factors and interactions, including social identity, communication strategies, and community norms. For analytical approach, in a literature review, this framework can be used to see how code switching occurs in different contexts. And for application, this framework is suitable for analyzing literature studies that observe patterns of language use in various social contexts. Maybe that's all from me. Thank you. I will give back to the moderator.
I will start to explain about the analysis and the rationale of this topic. For the analysis part, we use the article to be analyzed for this topic. We use an article titled Patterns of Language Use Among Multilingual University Students Majoring in English. Next slide, please. Okay. Here we use some conversation and dialogue or analyze the article. We categorize it by language variation, such as what explained before. The first aspect or the first context is when at home, a boy use Japanese language, and then in the second features there is the same boy but in the different context and different place use Indonesian language, and then next one. All right, and the third image, the third features, there is the same boy that using English language in classroom or in the different places too. And next one, please. From the analysis that we conduct, there are four results that we get from the analysis that we conduct. The first one is different language for different situations. This can mean that the students use different language based on where they are or and who they are talking to. For example, the boy that explained on the article used Japanese in home, and then he used Indonesian language in formal settings such as school or public places. And also he used English language mostly for academic purposes such as in the classes or reading an article or literature. And this can show how people naturally pick the language that fits the situation, which is known as, or we can call it as language domain. And then the second one is switching between language. The switching between language can explained by the students often switch between language during a conversation, depending on who they are talking to or the setting. For example, on the article, the boy may start in Japanese with friends and switch to Bahasa Indonesia if they need to be more formal. And we can call this aspect as code switching. And it often happens in multilingual societies. And then the third one is language and social status. For this one, we can see from the example that the students or the boys view different language differently. English is seen as cool or important for academics, and Bahasa Indonesia feels formal and modern. And while Japanese is linked to the tradition and closeness. And this idea can be called as language prestige, or we can mean it as certain language are valued more in the specific situation. And the last is policy versus reality. In this context, Indonesian language policy promotes using local language like such as Japanese, and then national language such as Bahasa Indonesia, and also foreign language such as English. However, in real life, the students don't always follow these guidelines exactly. Their language choices depends more on their everyday situation and also habits. All right, next slide, please. All right, that's for the analysis result. Now I will tell you about the rationale from the analysis and the theory. In a globalized world, multilingualism is becoming increasingly common. By understanding the linguistic variable at play, educators and linguists can better support multilingual individuals in different contexts. All right, I think that's all for me. I'll give it back to the moderator. Thank you.
Okay, for the next is pedagogical implications. The first is as language students, raising awareness of contextual variations for formality spectrum. Students need to be taught that different contexts, for the example, is academic, professional, social, require different levels of formality. For example, they should learn when to use formal versus informal language. For example, is going to and gonna. Appropriate greetings and the right level is politeness. Next slide, please. Next is exposure to linguistic variability. Is a dialectical difference. Language learners should be exposed to multi dialects or varieties of the target language, pronunciations and accents variations. Teachers should introduce students to different accents and pronunciation partners so they can comprehend and communicate across different contexts, avoiding overlines on a single standardized form. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next is as language teacher. Developing sociolinguistic competence. First is teaching pragmatic variations. Teachers needs to guide students in understanding the appropriate use of language in different social contexts. Second is fostering awareness of regional and social dialects. Help students recognize and understand the diversity within the language. Next slide, please. The next is reader context in ELT. Contextualized language teachings. The first, fostering linguistic competence. ELT should go beyond teaching the formal structure of the language and emphasize sociolinguistic competence, the ability to use language appropriately in various social and cultural contexts. The second is adapting to local context. ELT teachers need to be aware to their local teaching context. For example, English learners in different countries or regions may need to use English in different professional, academic, or social settings. Next. Here for the conclusions, linguistic variables are variables whose values are not numbers, but words or sentences in natural language. Multilingual individuals adapt their language use according to their environment, demonstrating the flexibility of language in social interactions. Pedagogically, this insight can guide effective language instructions in diverse multilingual settings. Here for the reference, and thank you.